talk about cars finding their way into the sky. We've been dreaming about them for such a long time. Since the moment cars hit roads, we were dreaming of getting them into the sky, and it has now happened. Jannis, I will introduce him in a second, he made us aware, hey, the flying cars are here. On the 26th of January this year, the Federal Aircraft Administration in the US, they gave a airworthiness certificate to the Terrafugia transition vehicle. It's literally a car that then can fly. And you'd say, brilliant, what a good start. Only that a week ago, the company manufacturing it had announced massive layoffs, and they're now leaving the US. Boom, they're gone. So you wonder what went wrong. Because urban air mobility is not just one market, it's many markets. And while we may have the flying vehicles now and in the near future, the big question is, how do we make money with them? How do we make them useful? What is the market need we need to address? And that's a topic for us today, and it's so cool you're all joining, and we have two experts here who work on exactly that question. And they're one, Jannis Töpfer. Jannis, hey, good you're here. And Corvin. Now, Corvin, he's the CEO of D3 Technologies. The idea is, what do we need to build to avoid flying vehicles bumping into one another in the sky? Air traffic control, air traffic safety. And Jannis, you're manager for vehicle and subsystems partnerships at Hyundai. So brilliant you take the time tonight. We'll chat for 20, 30 minutes and then open up the floor to the questions of all the participants, to your thoughts, your observations. Let's get one question out of the way straight away. And we won't turn back and go back to it, but we have to ask it. Jannis, do we really need flying cars?
Thanks, Andreas. And the short answer is yes, but let me elaborate on that really quickly. So first of all, the picture you painted right now, or the example you mentioned with Terrafugia, right? That is not what we are striving for, and generally, I don't think that's what's really considered urban air mobility. Because when you try to make a plane roadable in that sense, or you try to make a car fly, right, you're bringing in two very different design paradigms that you're just trying to find compromises in the middle that generally are not the best solution. What we are more thinking of when we talk about urban air mobility is flying people from, distinct locations, so-called vertiports in a city around. Now, do we really need this? We think absolutely yes. And the main reason here is that if you look at cities currently, right, even with the infrastructure we put in place, even in cities with really well-developed infrastructure like we have in Munich, we already see that 2D just doesn't, there's so much congestion, it just doesn't get it done. So why not take some of that traffic into the third dimension and therefore help, bring the cities more to life again? I mean, we don't want to add more car lanes. We don't really want to do that, right? Because we want to live in these cities and we want to have room for the people. So that's the overall, goal that we're striving for. And I think that is, the use case and why we really need UAM. Let me touch on one big thing here, though, that really I want to make clear from the beginning, is that UAM in isolation will not solve the problem and will not get us where we need to be. Okay. It really needs to be a multimodal approach, combining different mobility modes.
Okay. I mean, the more you combine, the more complexity you get, and the more potential things can go wrong. Let's bring Corvin in here. Jannis, while you have the bird's eye view, you worked as a business consultant, now with Hyundai. You speak with many partners in the ecosystem. Corvin, you look at one very specific topic in urban air mobility, and that's how to make it safe. What does D3 do exactly?
Well, at D3, we're developing what we call a digital operating platform for urban air mobility. And that essentially means that we're connecting vehicles to each other and to ground stations. And we we believe that there needs to be a central instance, a guiding instance that actually disseminates safe routes, basically in order to optimize airspace usage. Needs what we call positive control. We do not believe that a long-term solution lies in letting vehicles decide for themselves where they want to fly, but they need to be integrated into a planned and plannable system. But Andreas, back to your question, do we need flying cars? And Jannis' answer, I totally agree with what Jannis said earlier on. I believe there are several, the so-called flying cars or the eVTOLs or drones or air taxis, whatever we want to call them, will never replace a subway. They're not meant to replace a subway. They will serve very specific needs, what we call long, thin routes in aviation. Routes that in traditional 2D transportation, subways, metros, buses, trams, you'd have to change your mode of transportation several times. You'd have to hop from a bus to a tram to a subway to get there. And these routes can be served, and because they can be served, they can reduce the tendency to take a car because the public transport is cumbersome. So we actually we do not think that we will solve the problem of traffic on the ground, but we will offer very viable alternatives. And now comes the big question: how do you do that such that the public has more benefit than negative impact? And we believe that we need to put the cities in a position to actually help design how they want their air to be used. We don't believe in this idea of flying from everywhere to everywhere. We think a city needs to be able to say, listen, no flying over Central Park, no flying over the English Garden, no flying over Kensington Park. Cities need to be able to say, this is where this happens, and this is where this won't happen. And that's part of what we're doing.
Okay, so if we get it right, I hear from both of you, Jannis and Corvin, if we get this right, we see benefits for society, for individuals. But today, we want to talk about the benefits for those that invest, that build companies in the space. And many of us are looking at these manufacturers of urban air vehicles, the flying cars, and go, wow, we're there. It's done. We have the flying cars, right? What else would we need, Jannis?
Yeah, there are actually quite a few other things we need to make this, I would say, a seamless and really pleasant journey for the passenger. And I would say there are probably 3 to 4 other main areas that we need to look at. One is the associated infrastructure. And here I would divide it into the physical infrastructure. So think of that as the landing spots and the places where people would actually get into the vehicles and leave them again. There's the digital infrastructure. So that's what Corvin already mentioned. How do I tie all of this into the digital backbone that sort of controls the airspace? There's also a big area around operations, right? How do I efficiently move people from A to B? And even answering simple questions like, how do I go about security, right? Am I going to have long security lines that we are used to at the airports or at TSA?
Oh no, please no! Don't
exactly.
Tell me. Oh my God, Corvin, that sounds like a horrible vision. Anything else, Corvin, that we need to think about? The flying vehicles alone are not the whole industry. What else?
Right, I'll continue Jannis' list, and Jannis, you pitch in if I forget something.
Yep.
So the physical infrastructure, the question of security, the customer interaction models, i.e., how does the end customer, the flying population, interact with the system? How do you order vehicles? How do you pay for them? How convenient are they? And what time intervals do they fly? What places do they service? So there is a substantial brain work to be done in how do you offer this system to the public.